Alrighty then. So here we are, another week, another crazy just weekend of March Madness. We were just talking about how it feels like almost farther away than it should be. Like it was literally only like a couple days ago, but it feels like a whole freaking like month ago. Like I just keep thinking about it, and I'm like, that happened like 3 days ago. That's nuts.
It's like cut all the games down. There's not games on like Thursdays and Fridays, which was
Hmm.
nicer. I got used to that and spoiled by that really quickly.
Oh yeah, March Madness is that beautiful time where you can spend an entire day just sitting at home watching college basketball, and it be one of those things where you're like, can't believe you sat home all day and did nothing. And it's like, yeah, well, I sat there and watched amazing March Madness basketball for,
Yeah.
15 hours of my life that I will happily do every year.
But now we get on the background was like spring training and stuff. It's like great background noise because they
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
care as much about needing to have it on there at that point.
Yes. Yeah. So
It's
we'll
there.
talk about baseball opening day because I'm excited because my two favorite teams in the Major League Baseball are the Yankees and the Cubs, and both of them Yankees a lot more promising than the Cubs, but both of them are pretty promising. So I'm looking forward to that. But let's kick it off with the March Madness because obviously there was some upsets, and we are here in March Madness without a top three team in the tournament, which is wild. We reached the Elite Eight without a single one seed, which is crazy. It was the first time ever that's ever happened. I mean, as far as the teams even go, there was only one two seed. Like it was wild. So right off the bat, we kicked it off with it's funny, we kicked it off with San Diego State versus Creighton, ended up in the Elite Eight. So talking about the Sweet 16, it's funny because we talked about previously with Craig that San Diego State was a really underrated team and was one of those teams that could make a lot of noise. And here they are in the Final Four, having plowed through Alabama and then narrowly beaten Creighton in some questionable call at the end. I know that like I don't know if you saw it, but that like hand on the hip that like sent the guy to the foul line, and then
Yeah.
Creighton got called out on that. I don't know. I think I get the idea of if you're not calling it the rest of the game, you shouldn't call it in that situation. But it's also one of those where like I mean, it looked like a foul. Like even live, I watched it. I'm like, it looks like a foul. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
Ticky tacky. I think they'd let it.
Yeah, they feel like they get shafted, but I mean, San Diego State's a pretty solid team regardless. I mean, you run through Alabama, uh, you know, you're in pretty handedly. I mean, it wasn't like Alabama was in control of that game at really any point. So San Diego State looks like a team that deserves to be here. Creighton, you could say, also deserved to be there, but unfortunately, it's March Madness. That's the luck of the draw.
Yeah. I don't know. Both of the games were actually, decently close then too. What was the blowout?
The blowout, well, so there was the what was it? UConn versus Arkansas. That was a 23
There we
point
go.
blowout.
Yes, the
Jesus.
game I turned off, that one. That's what I was
Yeah.
trying to
Oh,
think of.
I had it on the background only because currently I have two TVs in my living room. So it's one of those where I could just have it on there and just like watch some other stuff. Also, UConn blew out Gonzaga. That was another game that I turned off
Oh
in a
yeah, yeah.
heartbeat.
Yeah, that was another one
Back to
too.
back. So I just want to say that when we had Craig on, Craig did say that his pick basically for the rest of this March Madness was probably going to be UConn because they looked dominant and they looked like the team that probably deserved to be here the most. And holy crap, they looked like they could pretty much run through anybody and it didn't matter who it was. So
Yeah,
here we
I
are.
think I think after getting my insider knowledge from Craig, I'm thinking that UConn's gonna win at that
Hmm.
point. I don't know if that was his pick towards the end. I think it was.
I'm pretty sure that he said that. I'm pretty sure that he said that like really whoever came out of the Arkansas UConn game was probably going to be his pick running for the future because he said Arkansas I mean had like multiple players. I think he said at one point that actually five of the players on Arkansas's team might get drafted in the first and second round.
Huh.
So or he's seen mocks with that.
Yeah,
So yeah, if you're missing what we're getting, Craig, one of our friends, who knows way more about college basketball than we do, was on last week to break down what had happened in the first two rounds and what he expects to happen the rest of the tournament. And he was honestly pretty right in a lot of his picks here. UConn he picked as like his favorite to move on, and it was really kind of one of those where he was like, Arkansas is a very solid team that's been underrated, and if they get through that team, then he basically thought UConn would go all the way. and they have looked like they didn't even deserve to be like the other teams didn't deserve to be in the same stadium as
Yeah.
them. Like both those games were sad.
Not that odds are indicative of anything, but they're like by far the favorite. The
Yeah,
second the
betting
second
favorite.
best is San Diego. And they're at like they're at like plus 390, but UConn's like negative 130. So
Yeah, I mean, UConn just
consensus.
looked so unbelievably dominant, and it was just like not one aspect or two aspects. It was like every aspect. It was like, were they better in rebounding? Seemed like they were. Were they better, like in the 3 point, game? Seemed like they were. Were they better in, defensively? Definitely seemed like they were. Like the entire game, both those games, it was like watching what a traditional 1 versus 16 seed looks like, where normally the 16 seed gets like blown out and you like feel bad for them. Like you're happy they're there, but you're like, eh. like like the Kansas versus Howard, you're like, I'm so glad that Howard got there, but man, lose by like almost 30. It's like,
Yeah.
you knew that game was in the bag. That's how it felt with UConn's entire run, basically, to now. I mean, if you look, just glancing back, they've won by 14, 15, 23, and now, what is that, 27, 28?
Oh wow.
So,
Okay.
yeah. Their worst win so far was 15 points or 14 points.
And was that in the first round or when was
Yeah, first round against Iona.
that's pretty nuts, honestly. To not
I'm
have that
saying.
flipped around to like their biggest win was their opening.
And it's not like they went against bad teams. They went against St. Mary, who was a 5 seed, and they were pretty good coming into the tournament. And then you went against Arkansas, who, like Craig mentioned last week, they had almost 5 guys that could be in the NBA. And then, then they, Gonzaga's not a team like Gonzaga hasn't played super well this tournament, but they've been able to hang around and then seal the deal in like the second half of the they're the ending of the second half, and they just, I mean, both of those teams, they just went through like a buzzsaw. Like it wasn't even, it looked like a practice game. It looked like, you know, if like, I don't know, just, Illinois State, where I went to college, decided to play like, Purdue or something like that, and then they just would just watch us get burned.
Yeah.
Like, it
No,
was
the
bad.
so I at the very least hope it's not gonna make it so like the way going forward is gonna be super boring. Like the champion like that they're that big of a blowout. But is UConn also having a bunch of like draftable players or are they just like
I don't think so. I think that they've got like one or two
that's more
guys.
impressive?
I can't, because again, Craig would definitely probably know this better than we would, but I think there's like one guard, and then they have like a center too that also is pretty dominant, but I think the guard is like more likely to make it. They just, I mean, they're just one of those teams that just like UConn does this though. If you look at their previous like national championships that they've won 4 in the last like 25 years. And of those 4, it's like all of those teams had some players that were big names that like became names later. Like I think their first one, they had Rip Hamilton was their like big name. Then like one of their big names on the one was like Emeka Okafor, I think, and like I think it was like Emeka Okafor and Ben Gordon, I think, and then the other one was Kemba Walker, and then the other one was Shabazz Napier was dominating. So like they've had those like key players, but then the rest of the team is just like, is a complete team that just plays super well, coached super well.
Yeah. Okay. So it's one of those teams. That's
Yeah.
more exciting to me than a
Yeah.
couple of
No,
guys who should not really even be playing college basketball anymore. Just dominating. But that's good.
exactly.
It's fun.
Yeah. Now the other thing too though is that Miami has also looked impressive. Like I didn't think that Miami would, but like Texas was a team that looked like they were kind of going on a run. I mean, they were a team that looked like they were a little underappreciated for how well they played this year. Especially under that interim coach. Who, shout out to that guy. Glad he got a contract because he coached a hell of a team on an interim deal, and so they looked like they were the team that was going to be able to continue, and then all of a sudden Miami just stopped that. So now it's one of those where you're like, yeah, Texas is rolling. They're going to do it, and then they get beat. You're like, oh, okay, maybe we should look at the other team. Maybe the other team's on a roll instead. And
Yeah.
that's how that game. That game to me feels like it's going to be awesome. Like I feel like San Diego State FAU could end up one-sided because FAU's been playing incredibly well. Got to give it to them. They've been doing really well. They handedly they won. Like it wasn't one of those where like it was a fluke. Like they did. They deserve to be here. I just don't know if they can compete with San Diego State. So it's one of those where I feel like that game could either be it could be good or it could get out of hand.
Yeah.
Whereas the Miami UConn game, I think, is like the ultimate. That's going to be the one. And yes, I've seen this photo
Okay,
pop
good.
up quite a bit.
My question was like, why it was Gonzaga's coach in the back of a squad car. Why is this like 50-year-old plus man wearing a
I think it
backwards
was a
hat?
DUI, right?
Yeah, which makes it even funnier. Because
Yeah.
like, what
Well,
is he doing? Is that like he looks? I don't know. He looks like a wrinkled gecko. So I always thought that was funny for him to be wearing that. That's
that
cool.
he
That's
does.
how I judge my games.
He looks like a frat guy that like in that photo. If you haven't seen it across the internet, it's Gonzaga's coach in the back of a squad car after a DUI. He looks like a frat boy who like was a frat boy like 40 years ago. Like
Yeah.
that's what he looks like. He's just like the backwards hat with like the shirt. It's just like total frat boy look, but like, he's a 50, 60-year-old man. So,
Yeah, like
you
he went
know.
back to the house and nobody could tell him to go home or like say no because he was one of the
Yeah.
bros. Yeah.
Yeah. And they realized he was the coach. So they're like, yeah, we really can't kick out the coach. Uh, this is like Coach O. Did you ever see those photos of Coach O in at LSU?
No,
Is it Coach O? Is that what I'm thinking of? That was his nickname.
I don't even know who Coach O is.
Oh God, the dude, look up the pictures real quick, just because. And we're talking about this already. Look up the pictures of LSU Coach O with that dude just liked to just hook up. He loved to drink and just hook up with sorority girls.
Dude, he's so red. That looks so unhealthy.
I dude, Coach Ogeron, I think is his name or whatever.
Wow.
Do you see the photos of him
Yeah, I
in the bed
do.
with her? He's like
Yeah.
it. He like is just loves just drinking, coaching football, and hooking up with sorority girls.
That's weird. It's
You ever
pretty
see Blue
weird.
Mountain State? That's what it feels like. He could be the coach of that team.
Yeah. Oh God, there's so many pictures of him with different.
Mhm.
Oh
Yep.
God.
Yep.
The first one I saw was who's older, Coach O's new girl or Joe Burrow?
I mean, honestly, it's a good question because at the time, Joe Burrow was like 22, 23 years old. Won a national championship though with Joe Burrow. Dude, that team was so swagged out. That was crazy.
What an interesting guy. Hmm.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, no, I just to go back to this, Miami UConn's gonna be a hell of a game. I really am looking forward to that one. That one to me is gonna be like the big like I'm gonna be watching that like crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just as long as it's not a blowout, I'm all there for it. I'm
Miami
so
seems like
disappointed
the
by
type
the
of team that
Gonzaga
could hang
game.
around. Yeah, I mean that game I was kind of hoping that Gonzaga would be able to hang around at least enough to make it a game, but
Yeah.
you run into the better team, that's what happens, man.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, Miami versus UConn Saturday at 7:49. Oh my God, that was prime time. That was great.
God, it's actually
What are you
gonna
doing
give me a good
Saturday night?
time. Saturday night, I don't know. Sounds like I'm probably watching that at some point.
Oh yeah,
Is it wait, what are the two times? What are both times?
I didn't see what the other one was. I know it's the same day, so I would assume it's before it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would honestly love to go to a bar this weekend and just watch both of them.
They have to be back to back, right? Like they don't split it up like the championship and or no, the championship they don't even do that either. It's not on two
5:09,
separate days.
5:09. So 5 o'clock basically, and the other one starts at 7:45.
Okay. Okay. That's not bad.
So anyways, yeah, I'm excited. I think the March Madness this year has been one of those where like there's been a lot of March Madness is you could say this every year that there's crazy upsets, there's crazy games. But like, man, it's getting harder and harder to predict this stuff because like it used to be where you could like you knew certain things were going to occur. You knew that there was always going to be at least one, maybe two one seeds in the mix, even in the final four. Um it's like starting to get to a point where you're like, dude, anybody between the ranks of like three and or like 1-9 could potentially be in it, and who knows?
Yeah. No, I think that's probably where it shines through the best at the same time. It's a
This,
shame to see those like the 15 and 16 seeds and stuff like get knocked out in the next round. Like it seems like they're going to be offered up like a
yeah,
sacrifice after they get one good win, but still.
I mean, if you look up, I think Florida Gulf Coast made it a few games. I think they ended up making it to the Elite Eight and then lost, something like that. Princeton making it all the way to the Sweet 16 is great. I mean, that's awesome. To go through that first weekend and all the excitement and everything like that, and to then end up being, I mean, shout out to them. And we talked about it, like what were they doing that kind of helps them, and it was them slowing down the other team. It's just one of those where they just couldn't do it against Creighton. It's like they just couldn't control the tempo in any way. So then that's what happened.
Yeah.
But
It eventually fizzled out, which makes
yeah,
sense, but like what are you going to do?
yeah, I mean, there's nothing. Yeah, I mean, you just talent wise, you are a very talented. You're a talented team. That's why you're there. But it's just one of those where, yeah, you're just unfortunately sometimes those lower ranked teams, even though they go on Cinderella runs, sometimes they just run into teams that are just either A, just better than them, or B, just they're getting there on their shooting and then it doesn't happen. It's hard to string together those wins because you need a lot of things to go right. It's like if you're look at U of I in like 2004, I forget what it was, the Darian Williams team. They were basically winning like basically on their 3-point shooting, and then it was one of those where it just ran out. They went broke in the last game, and then that was it. So it's hard to string you have to be a very complete team to string all of these games in a row.
Yeah.
And with a team like Princeton, it's just sometimes that happens where, you just can't do it anymore. You put up a good effort, but it just reaches an end. You kind of reach your breaking point or your peak or you know.
How happy were you to see Alabama lose?
Oh, I was happy. I was for sure. I like as much as like you have college football. You don't need to continue. Like
Yeah.
I'm an Ohio State fan. I'm okay with our team not being as great in basketball. Would I like them to be? Yeah, but I'm okay with it because we're pretty good in football. So
Yeah. There needs to be some split. You can't be good at everything. You have to stop that. I mean,
I
obviously
do.
with Alabama it's not going to be schooling. So they have to have football done, which is fine.
Solid.
So,
Uh, I do enjoy I think what's also nice is that when I grew like growing up, me and you, we lived in an era where like the blue bloods were like really just like the dominant teams no matter what. And I like that now we're seeing like, I mean, look at this year in alone, you're seeing like Houston, Bama, Purdue number one seeds. I
yeah.
mean, even your two seeds, Arizona's pretty typical. They've been there for a while, but Texas, coming in, UCLA's, Marquette. Like there's a lot of teams that are like, yeah, they've always been good, in our lifetime, but like the Dukes, the Kentuckys, the Kansas every single year. Like it's really nice to see a wide range of teams, like kind of between 1 and 6 ranking that you normally don't see. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, there are a lot of usual suspects, but there are a lot of teams though that are like starting to become teams that make noise every year that weren't before.
And I wonder because I always thought that that was only going to get worse and worse with like with I don't know. I know
The one and done.
yeah, I guess like is that just indicative of it's kind of like finally balancing it out a little bit because they're able to like get deals, endorsement deals at different places, whereas like Alabama and like I mean I basically every other top program was like
Yeah,
definitely not giving money under the table to
yeah,
athletes for them to come there.
right.
So like now that they're all definitely not doing that, is it like they can go to other places and it's more parity?
I think with that, and I think it's also with college basketball, it really is important to get a coach that does a great job recruiting because and building just a cohesive team because you see teams that like Princeton for example, those are guys that have been playing with each other for the last like 3-4 years, and they recruited good players into their team. They all played as a really good cohesive unit. That coach has been really great at coaching them, and then this is what happens. I mean, you look at the FDU, the 16 seed that won this year, their head coach was I think a D3 coach or something like that beforehand, or something of that nature. And then he became their head coach, and he took over a team that had won 4 games or 5 games the previous year, and then all of a sudden they're 20 plus wins in the tournament, winning against a 1 seed. So it's a lot with the coaching and recruitment and being able to consistently continually bring in guys that play in a cohesive unit, and guys that have been playing for 3-4 years at a time together, and keeping that going is what gets those teams in the mix with those other teams that get those, and then yeah, with the new rules and everything that's been going on and everything like that, that is kind of finally balancing out where those one and dones aren't as prominent in the tournament as you've seen previously, because now we're starting to see them kind of go elsewhere, not just the blue blood teams, and then kind of also you're getting, like I said, a lot more teams that are building, starters long term versus, just building their life on one and dones.
Yeah, which is better for everyone. So I like that. That's an
Yeah.
improvement. I'm curious about there I forgot who made the statement on it, but it was more about like if eventually if it's all gonna start flowing like back upwards with like March Madness and like
Mhm.
college teams and everything. Because like it's more parity, but I was wondering if at some point it's gonna only still make sense to get even more money to go back to like the other teams and stuff now because the endorsement deals are gonna be still bigger from like the other teams. So like it kind of half solves the
I,
problem. It doesn't 100%
I mean,
improves
it,
it.
it, it helps to even the odds a little bit, but you're still going to get those players, the big names, the top recruits that are going to go to teams for that reason. But you are going to see, you know, a lot of other teams be able to compete still because they can kind of offer, the players something, as far as that goes. Maybe not as much as the other teams, but if the other team's offering that player who is, has the caliber to be on that team, but they're offering him like a no guarantee starting role. You might take a couple of years, whereas this other team can offer that guy a starting role the first year or two he steps on the court. Then those teams get some leverage there because they're also offering some level of deal that the other teams can offer. So it's kind
Yeah.
of, it balances it out a little bit. At least evens the odds a little bit when you're in the negotiating room, because you can not only offer playing time, but you can also offer like, hey, we can also offer a little bit of something that you would get at those bigger schools.
Yeah. Okay. I mean that makes sense. The transition time, we're really not going to see the I guess like the full output of where it's going for at least a few years now. Because when did it get implemented? Was that literally last year or is that 2 years ago now?
Might have been 2 years now. Holy cow! Yeah, time keeps flying, so I'm not 100% sure whether it was last year or previous, but
Yeah.
what's nice though is in this transition period, you'll see teams that are able to build a reputation. So like FAU being in the Final Four is like, they could talk about that in recruitment for like years to come. So that's huge for teams like that because it makes their names out there. Now players, high school, college players coming up in Florida, for instance, just in their state, pipeline alone can look at FAU and be like, that coach is doing something. Like maybe I want to go be a part of that. Like they went to a Final Four, you know, and whereas like if they were like if they dropped out in the second round or something like that, you might not consider it as much, but at least it's helping these teams now be able to kind of establish themselves as a name. Like Creighton's always been kind of up there, but for Creighton to get to the Elite Eight, that's talking point for them. Um, Xavier, Arkansas, these teams are going to benefit right now, at least from the kind of landscape in order to develop, a program that continuously is good.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Yeah.
sounds promising. Still got that to go around too. So
hmm Either way, this weekend's going to be fun, and I will say my biggest gripe about college sports in general is, for the love of God, can we stop putting our national championships on Monday nights? Like I don't, I just, I get it. I get that they don't want to interfere with other sports, blah blah blah, yada yada yada, whatever. Stupid.
what other
Play your
sport
national
now though?
championship. I don't know. Like college football doesn't want to fight with the NFL, so they always do their stuff on Saturdays, and then they do stuff on Monday. The championship Monday,
Yeah.
blah blah blah.
But what is
Just
March
do it
Madness
on.
arguing? Like I don't understand. That's even more egregious that they don't have that.
I don't know. It's just a college thing. I don't get it. I don't know why the national championship has to be on a Monday night. It makes no freaking sense.
Yeah, they make it like the most inconvenient way to possibly watch it.
It's honestly the same gripe I have regarding the Super Bowl being on a Sunday. Just put it on a Saturday night. I don't know why we have to continue the Sunday routine. Just put it on Saturday.
Yeah,
Like,
I know. I
I
think
just
I think we'll eventually get there, but
stagger national championships and put them on Saturdays.
yeah.
That's all I ask. It's not that difficult.
Yeah, I can't imagine that they wouldn't see a huge benefit from it too, which it makes me wonder why they didn't do it earlier, but I don't know. That's tough. That's tough to predict.
Yeah, like the Final Four, the way you'd have to do it for them is the Final Four would have to be basically on a Thursday if you want to keep the 2 days in between and then put the national championship on a Saturday. But the point still stands that it's not like Saturday right now is because the national champ is because the Final Four, but it's not like you're going to lose the popularity or lose the issues that Saturday because you moved, like you know what I mean? Like you're like the same amount of like interest you're going to get in the sport in general for Saturday and Monday, you probably are going to get for Thursday and Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's a weird decision. I still don't understand it. I've like they've gone across like the theory that when they eventually go to, at least for the NFL, when they eventually go to 18 games, that then it would be able to stagger it and then they would have it eventually on a Saturday and then that would make more sense. Which is like a really weird long-term plan if that was ever the idea. Like I understand how people are like, "Oh yeah, now it makes sense to get to there," but like I don't understand what they would have to gain from like dragging it out this long. So I have not heard a good solution for that as to why.
well, because they like the rest of the tournament, they play games on Thursday and Friday. So, like, I don't understand why they're so against Thursday being the Final Four games and then just have the national championship on Saturday night. You
Yeah.
still get the 2 days in between. Your national championship is now the focus of that weekend. Like, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm sure there's probably some crazy analytic numbers that are probably contributing to why they make that decision. To me, as a fan, just on looking at it on the in, on the out, it makes no sense.
Yeah. Just a complaining viewer. No big deal.
Yeah, I mean, but it's one of those where it's like not like I'm saying a controversial point here. It's like
Yeah.
just freaking have the national championship on a Saturday. For the love of God.
Yeah. Well, did you want to move on from March Madness or do you have anything else still?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I'm definitely excited to watch it this weekend, but I think I'm pretty much, I think I've hit everything I wanted to talk about.
Okay, awesome. Because then I could bring you to my new segment that I
Oh
wanted to
boy.
start that I only have one thing for, and it's not a segment, but I actually can't bring myself to read it because I feel like that's awful and super cringy when like news people read it. Like if you like remember when they brought memes onto Sunday Night Football and they were like wrong and like completely out of
Oh,
context and they were like me watching do this thing and it's like Aaron Rodgers like eating like a turkey leg or something and then they were
yeah.
all like ha 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 Michelle, that's hilarious, super funny, and they were like, I totally get this meme thing.
I
I always thought
cannot
that was
see it
funny.
on the screen, so
Don't worry. No, I was
okay.
getting to that part, but so this is the one that I immediately saw today and was killing me. And it was
Okay.
about again going into the NFL owners. They approved that they numbers that they could wear 0 on the back of their
Mhm.
jerseys. So naturally, the first thing that came up was about the legacy systems and everything, like all the stat tracking stuff for all the super nerds. And then thus this part came up and it was about the commander scoreboard would short out because they're super cheap, but they always put up zeros. That's the closest I can get to reading it word for word, but hopefully you could see it from there. I loved
Okay.
it. It was great.
I I saw somebody's post that somebody put like a Vikings jersey and it said 0 and then the name on the back of the jersey just said rings and I was like that's incredible. I was like that's awful, but
We lost so many LeBron memes when he won like his first championship because I'm thinking about like super old school ones.
oh like
Like
the LaFale or whatever, it was like the
yeah, I mean there was those ones. What was the classic one? Was like what the four quarters joke or whatever as well. I mean that
oh
one
yeah,
kind of still
give it
works,
was
but
like give him $1 and he'll only give you 3/4.
yeah,
It was like something like that. Yeah, I remember that.
yeah.
That was great. Like,
It was a
what an
great
era.
disservice when he finally won his first ring because that also eliminated a lot of other ones. But you know, we'll eventually we'll move on to the next person.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. The number zero thing is, it's one of those where like it definitely is going to look cool on jerseys and stuff like that and everything as far as the numbers go. But yeah, it opens a new avenue for jokes and it's great and it's just
yeah,
love it.
yeah. Oh man, he's lead. I was gonna immediately then lead into the other part too, which was Calvin Ridley deleted his tweet, but there
Oh,
was
what was his
there
tweet?
some other okay. So God, I hate having to read it, but here we go. So it was this other Twitter account or something was saying number zero for the amount of good bets Ridley took in the parlay, and then he quote tweeted it and replied to it. It was like that shit behind me, but I won 36K, which is just a self own because he obviously lost an entire year out of it, but
Yeah, we lost a lot more than
hilarious.
just that.
So
Yeah, I
obviously he's
made
taking in
100.
stride, which is great.
As I say, I made 100. Made 136K off of that. Lost like 10 plus million in contract money. But either way,
Mm-hmm. Damn,
God.
that's so disappointing that got deleted. But yeah, I'm gonna start pulling those because that was one of my favorite ones that I came across.
Oh
I
yeah,
was like, oh yeah, I'm having all those. But
yeah. I totally love the comments because some of them. I mean, some of them are like obviously ridiculously stupid, but then there are those comments that are gold that are just like, yes, thank you. And
they
I
get
just,
buried. That's the
yeah,
one right there though.
yeah. That's fantastic.
But yeah, so you're gonna really appreciate that.
The Yeah, the Commanders just. I could go on a lot about the Commanders and how they need to just freaking sell the team already for the love of God.
Yeah. Oh, also Calvin Ridley is going to be wearing number zero, so that's also a news thing to talk about. That's how those all
That is
three
cool.
kind of like come together like that.
Yeah, it's a perfect like storm.
Oh,
They
and Mooney said he was very interested in wearing zero. So zero, one, and two.
because what's
Huh?
he rating 11?
He's 11. And then
Oh,
Claypool
that
wants
would be
11.
nice.
So zero, one, two, and then I guess technically 11. These two are one and one. That's 11.
Okay, yeah, I see that.
But
All right,
that'd be kind of cool.
interesting. That would be cool. Mooney fits the player that I like. I want Zero to be on a player that's like fast and like small and speedy. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Calvin Ridley, 6 foot tall. I think pretty fast receiver as far as his 40 goes and everything.
Yeah.
Darnell Mooney would be solid. Tyreek Hill. Did you see Tyreek Hill's tweet actually about it? That was pretty funny. He tweeted at Jalen Waddle and said, "You should change your number to zero for how many times you've beat me in Madden." And I was like, "That's pretty." I was like, "That's awesome."
That is pretty good actually.
Tyreek Hill
I had
would be a
another thing
player.
about beating that I was gonna go to as well, but he just
Oh
opened
boy.
himself up to that. Boom.
Oh no. Um,
But
Ty- he would be
also,
cool in the zero though.
yeah, no,
Tyreek
no.
Hill would be cool. I'm trying
I
to
was
think
gonna
of who
ask, were you
other.
one of those people who cared and thought it was like super weird when they allowed like the 40s and stuff like for other people to be like wearing that? Were you like, oh,
No,
it's
I
weird,
thought it
he's
was
like
awesome.
too small? Okay. I
No, I
think
thought it was awesome. I loved like the I just like the look of I just love the look of it. Like the even like seeing like an edge rusher with like number 9 or something is I just think looks solid. Looks awesome.
yeah, no, it's different. I get where people are coming from, but also I just thought how stuck people were on it and like passionate about it was very odd.
Yeah, I heard a thing. I don't know if it's true, but it would make sense that they like the numbering system really helped previously for referees because they would be able to see the number and instantly know what type of player is there as far as
Yeah.
like eligibility for receiving and things like that. But now obviously you have review and all that
Well,
jazz.
now
So
they've
it's
accepted they can't see anyways, so it's
well,
like
yeah. I
why
mean,
even
if
try?
yeah, now as your referee, you're just basically taking whatever call they tell you to call in the field from New York. So you
Yeah.
know,
Although they
but
did shoot down a bunch of those rules too. Like the pass interference one was put up, I think, as part of proposal, shot down, obviously. The 4th and 20, that's a good one too. The 4th and 20 instead
I
of an onside kick. I feel like you
I
have a
honestly
strong
like that
opinion.
idea a lot. I really do.
Really?
Yeah, because it's like, I mean, like, how ridiculous do you think? Like, how many teams do you think physically could complete a 4th and 20 in a situation in which they would need to?
I think
Like,
it gives way. I think like literally, okay, obviously you're gonna go to like the Chiefs and stuff, but like that's so much easier for them. And I'm talking about
mhm.
it's not easy, but if it was a 2% conversion rate, and that's probably absurdly low in the first place, that's easily making it like how often is that going to be used and incorporated? Like it's at least going to cut that in half or,
Yeah,
increase
it's
it. Yeah.
it's gonna be bold to actually try it though. Like, I feel like it's going to end up being because if you really think about it, like there's not a lot of plays that are designed for 20+ yard gains. The only time that those are ever planned are for like fly routes, post routes, corner routes, things where they're like trying to get a guy open and draw attention and then get a guy open. But the problem with running a 4th and 20 is that everybody knows you have to get the 20 yards. So the other team can play kind of a prevent defense where it's like, listen, you can catch the ball 10 yards in front of it and we'll tackle you, you know.
Yeah.
So it's one of those where it's like 4th and 20 in a like game. Like if 1st and 20 is different than 4th and 20. Like if you were like, you're trying to throw on 1st and 20 to get the first down, it's a lot easier because teams aren't expecting it. But 4th and 20, teams are expecting it. So it's like
Yeah.
it's hard to say. And then the problem is that if you don't complete it and the ball's incomplete or something like that, well, then the other team gets the ball right then and there.
Yeah.
I to me, it feels like it would just be interesting. Like I would be down for it because like onside kicks to me aren't as interesting because they rarely work. So like, just give me like the idea of like a ridiculous Hail Mary where it's completed and then all of a sudden it's like, we have a game, boys.
Yeah. I I think it's interesting. I think it gives like another tool to offense that they don't really need. And it could create really interesting situations. It could also create really, really funny, hilariously bad ones because you can obviously throw like a really bad team in that situation where they would have to incorporate it. I don't know. I I think it'd
It
be
just
funny.
to me the idea goes like, okay, if you say like, oh, the Chiefs would have an easier time doing it, it's one of those where like, well, yeah, the Chiefs would because they have Patrick Holmes, but the idea is though still that like they would have to think that they can do it enough that they would make that decision to like go for it
Yeah.
unless they were like desperate. Like that's like the only reason why you really do an onside kick is because you're desperate. You're down by more than one score and or you're down by one score and you have 0 timeouts and you need the ball because you can't stop them if they get it.
Yeah.
Like those situations are one of those where like those are far and few between, where that actually it comes up where it can happen. Like
Do you
if
remember
it
the
turned
Seahawks and Bears game?
what was that? The
26 to 0 where they punted and never tried to convert in fourth down or anything once. It
yeah,
makes me
yeah, I
think
do
of that
remember
game.
that. It's just one of those where like the situation in which it would work the best and be like news is those situations where a team was able to complete it down by one score with 0 timeouts and then now they have the ball and have a chance. But
Yeah.
then you also have to look at like the actual conversion rate of that and how often those situations occur, and it's probably really low that like those situations would occur and it would be completed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a niche play, but that one got shot down. The pass interference one also got shot down. All the really fun stuff pretty much got shot down except for the jersey stuff. There was also this very stupid take that was reported by Pat McAfee, but apparently attributed to some other person because I'm sure they're aware of how stupid it sounds as well. Where they were saying that like, yeah, maybe Bill Belichick might be on the chopping block, like if he doesn't continue winning or anything. I don't even think they believe this. I think they just posted that because it's engagement. But again,
Yeah,
not
it's
giving it too
it's
much time.
it's the Seahawks with Pete Carroll. It's like, do you see them get moving on from Pete Carroll anytime soon? Like it's the same kind
Stop.
of.
No, 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 no. No, it's not. No, it's not.
No, no, I'm
Pete
saying
Carroll did
like
not win 6 Super Bowls.
yeah, but I'm saying the same idea as like it's an older coach that like like the only way like the only reason why I see them getting rid of Pete Carroll right now is if they like he retired.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
they
yeah.
moved on from Russell Wilson and didn't move on from Pete Carroll. They want to keep Pete Carroll. It's the same. It's the same way I feel about the Patriots. Like they would move on from Mac Jones before they would move on from Bill Belichick in a heartbeat.
Oh God,
Like
I would
it's just not
hope
going to happen.
so. You
I know,
think
but
they
I'm
would
just
try
saying
something
like
else? Yeah.
I'm just saying it's not going to happen. Like it's the same way I feel about Pete Carroll, where like if somebody was like, "Oh, Pete Carroll's in the chopping block," I'm like, "No, he isn't."
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like that guy's there until he retires.
We should make a policy that when we do gather a bunch of really, really stupid takes, you don't give them the time of day, and then like keep it to like a quick like response time on that stuff.
Yeah,
Like we just did. But I could pull. It's almost easier to pull up a bunch of really, really stupid things to talk about, and there are some really fun ones. like LaShawn
Mhm.
McCoy's takes, anything he really says on Twitter ever.
Anything, yeah, literally anything he says when he goes on
Infinite,
the show. It's just
infinite content. You just keep going.
yeah, it's stuff like that that I read and I'm just like that's dumb. Like it's they're not going to move on from Bill Belichick. I know in my Pete Carroll like comparison, like yeah, I agree he's not Pete Carroll. Like Pete Carroll's not the same, obviously the championships, but it's the same situation where it's like they're not letting Pete Carroll go. Like it's
Yeah.
not happening.
Yeah.
So the
Um,
idea that he's on the chopping block is like no.
yeah, that's one where you just like there's an article and it's like, will the Patriots be looking to move on to a new head coach? And you go, no, and don't even open their article. Because if it ends in a question, it's always gonna be no.
Yeah, Robert Kraft when asked about Lamar Jackson and how he was texted by Meek Mill. By the way, hilarious. Meek Mill texting Robert Kraft.
What?
Did you read that?
No.
I
That's a
think
chat
Meek
GPT answer right there. That
dude,
didn't
it was like
happen.
Meek Mill texted Robert Kraft about Lamar wanting to come to the Patriots. And I was just like, what a statement that I just read. But anyway, Meek Mill was at his wedding, so you know. But anyways, either way, his answer was like, you'll have to ask like Bill, basically. It was like if Bill wants it. And it's like he's not defaulting to Bill in something like that so easily without Bill being like the guy. Like and not like he's not on the chopping block. Otherwise, like, Robert Kraft's answer to that wouldn't be you gotta ask Bill.
Yeah. Yeah. Hilarious. Um, That's another one that was also interesting too. This part about Jimmy Garoppolo was also interesting too. It's not really even that much like that really controversial.
I,
It's just I didn't know he had such like a private life, but that's been
well,
a
Jimmy, I
theme
mean, dude, Jimmy G's been like you know, dating what porn stars and bringing them around like the
for a
bringing the
while.
porn star around. You know, it's like Jimmy G just doesn't care. I think Jimmy G's honestly one of those people that like has immense talent, and that's why he's a starting quarterback in the NFL, but doesn't have the same love for the game. I want to say that
The
like you
psycho
know
work ethic.
a Tom Brady has. You know, like it's like I think Jimmy G enjoys like that starting quarterback role in you know pop culture and society.
Yeah.
It's like the same way that a starting quarterback enjoys like their popularity or like status, social status in like high school and college because of they're the starting quarterback. It's the same kind of idea with Jimmy G. I think it's just like he's always enjoyed that, and I think that's like what he likes the most about the position, even if he wouldn't admit it. So yeah, it's not surprising that Jimmy G is not like the biggest, you know, hard worker. You know, not saying he doesn't work hard to do what he does, but it's just like you know,
Yeah. So he
like
naturally was like potentially not starting on the 49ers. He's like, I'm gonna go to a really shit team so I could be sure to start there and still maintain the
that's
status.
I mean, listen, he's just starting quarterback of the
Respect.
Raiders. I mean, it's not like the Raiders have been making great decisions on their franchise for the last, you know,
But it
15 years.
perfectly fits into your model. There's no
But
expectations. He gets to be the starter indefinitely, and he's in Las Vegas.
this is
That
literally
makes so much sense for him. Oh my god, it makes sense why he took such a discounted deal. Now I get
this is
it.
the this is the second reference that I'm going to make to this TV show, but it's also relevant in this conversation. Is it's the same. If you've ever seen Blue Mountain State, that's literally the. Have you ever seen it?
I think I watched a bit of the first season.
Okay, it is hilarious because that is literally the Jimmy G is the backup quarterback who's like the thing in there where he wants to be the backup quarterback so he doesn't have to play hard, but then he can be like he can get like all of the you know the same popularity almost as the starter.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what Jimmy G's vibe is for me. Not saying he doesn't work hard to continue to be where he's at. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that, but what I
No,
am
no, no.
saying is that I don't think he's you
You're
know
not saying he doesn't work hard. You're saying that he directly identified exactly how hard he has to work to do what he wants, and then he stopped there. And he
yeah I
stays in
think
there.
I mean, he's got. I mean, he has immense talent at the. I
Yeah.
mean, his like his arm and everything. He's absurdly talented, and he's had the ability to learn under certain quarterbacks, and I think he has the ability to do it. He just it just doesn't feel like he puts the same amount of effort in. Is all I'm saying.
I respect he's a quiet quitter. That's what you're saying. Jimmy G's quiet quitting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally like, listen, he's living his best life. Is the statement I'll make. That's the statement I'm making.
Uh yeah, that's a good one. Okay. Next take as well. the draft capital for Aaron Rodgers is supposed to be around
Oh god,
two
yeah.
high second round draft picks. And then of course there's a hang up because why wouldn't there be? And
I
that's
love
where they're
it. Well, the
stuck
hang
at.
up is that they want more. They want like a later pick. They want like a day 3 pick in return,
Yeah.
which is just hilarious how screwed the Packers are. Like it's just I as
Careful.
Bears fans,
Don't say
amazing.
that. Don't leave that. There's like at least in 4 or 5 months or something. I don't want to come back to this and then the same Sunday night football game we've been watching for the past 10 years is going to be like, oh, the upstart Bears versus the upstart Packers. So just be careful. Be careful what you're saying.
Listen, I just as long as he's gone, he can't hurt us, and then we can go back to like I love that where I saw like the post that was like for Bears fans, and it was like he's going to the Jets, and he was like he can't hurt you anymore. He's gone, and I was like, you know what? I resent that, but I also agree.
No more I want to see it in paper and I want to see him in the Jets media room before any celebration happens.
Listen, you asked him like 4 weeks ago. This dude already was chat.
Yeah,
So
best
I just
best
I just
interview of
love
my
how
life.
screwed the Packers are getting though. Like 2 year, like literally 2 years ago or a year ago. When did Russell Wilson go to the Broncos? Was that a year ago?
Hmm.
1 year? Yeah,
Yep.
literally 1 year ago, the Packers could have potentially gotten like 3 first round picks and like 2 players for Aaron Rodgers, and now they're gonna get 50 million in dead cap and 2 second round picks.
That
Ooh.
yeah, I mean it's great. I couldn't be happier the way it worked out, but wow, that is
Dude, how
wild to
much
think.
I can't imagine how much dead money I forget what the number is. It's stupid how much dead money they're gonna eat in this contract.
So I think the last thing that came up about that was that like if they wait until June 1st to trade him, like they absorb significantly less of the cap.
Mhm.
So it's probably a pretty good likelihood that we don't see anything until then, which is just terrible for like
Yeah, well,
waiting. But yeah, I think the terms of the deal change a little bit when we get past that point. His dead cap this year, see yeah, pre June 1st is that right?
how much is it? 68 million?
68 million because like they
Yeah,
split
it
it up
sounds
into
about
two
right.
columns, so it's his total what is it, dead money and cap savings. Oh, okay. Wait, no, so his dead money is $100 million? And the dead
Well,
and the cap
dead
savings.
money because that's how much money of the contract that they're going to owe. It might be
Wow.
split over the course of the contracts, the life of the contract, but I mean that's how much money they guarantee to them that they're going to owe them.
Okay. Yeah, and then you see this like post June 1st stuff they got or trade. Okay, there we go. Trade, there's what we're looking for. Trade pre June 1st is dead money's 40 mil, and
Mhm.
then post June 1st, 15 mil.
Okay.
So significant difference. Got
Yeah,
it.
I mean his cap number is still 31 million though.
Oh yeah, you can't escape everything.
Yeah, I mean it's still regardless they're screwed in a way. Like they're going to be paying, and then the sad part is that they're going to have to pay Jaron Love too if he ends up actually being the guy. That's hilarious too. Is
And
that
they don't have
they'll
much time to figure it out either.
the Packers might end up in a Daniel Jones situation where they're just like, we have nothing better, and then they just give him a contract that's massive, and it's going to be great. I really hope so. I really hope this is the just we're watching like the Packers just finally get their comeuppance for having 30 straight years of Hall of Fame quarterback play and only getting 2 Super Bowls in it.
Yeah, it's going to be great because it's just going to get hopefully worse for them. And
Mhm.
then hopefully, I mean, like, you have to eventually hope you could view it as like the Bears are trending upwards and the Packers are trending downwards. That's the best case scenario. So, like, all I'm saying is further we go along the time axis, that we're going to be
Yeah.
sitting here and then everything's going to be that much better because there's going to be that much of a gap. But again, I'm not
Well,
going to go crazy.
I will say the thing with the Bears is that I've seen this free agency and last free agency. Like we've now had a pretty good amount of time to see like what his plan is. Ryan Poles speaking. I do want to speak on this real quick as like a small little segment leading into this. What he's done last free agency draft this year, this free agency so far, with draft capital and everything included. I honestly am starting to see that kind of like what his plan is, which is that he's just not going to like jump out and be like the like, oh, we have to spend all of our money now and we have to get this and we have to do this, blah blah blah. You know, I what I've seen is that he's consistently trying to improve the team while also maintaining flexibility, which is what he said that he wanted to do, but obviously saying that is harder to do than actually doing it. And so far, he's done a fantastic job of that because now we have a ridiculous amount of draft capital in the next 2 years, on top of the fact that you have pretty front loaded contracts in your current signings from this year, as well as contracts that you can get out of pretty soon in order to continue down the road. And you still have two 2 years of just 3 more years of Justin if you count the fifth year. So I want to say that I really have enjoyed the Bears. Like I've been a person that's been like, we need to go sign this guy, we need to go sign this guy. And a lot of that is like me just wanting them to be better instantaneously so that way I can just be happy, like enjoy the product complete. But it's like I respect the plan that has been put in place and is still in place despite the, you know, potential that we could have had, like the fact that we didn't, like the fact that we were in on Mike McGlinchey but stayed at the number that we wanted and then didn't jump to the number that they ended up paying him for, or paying for him,
Yeah.
makes me feel good because it's like, oh, okay, we were in the conversation, meaning that, like, because the problem with the Chicago teams in general and like the Bears especially is that we never heard that they were in the mix for anything. Like it felt like any free agent that was out there, we were never in the mix. That's why, like, when Khalil Mack got traded, it like that changed it a little bit in my opinion, because when Khalil Mack got traded, I was like, we actually traded for somebody that was like a star. Like we actually traded for somebody that was available, or like made the deal and everything. Whereas it always feels like we're never in the mix for those conversations that occur. Like Bulls fan, Cubs fan, until recently, it always felt like we weren't in those conversations at all, whereas we should be. So
Yeah.
it's nice that we're in those conversations, but then we didn't overpay. Is basically where I'm at, and we still got good value where we're currently at.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's usually brought up all the time that like Chicago is a premier city that attracts like free agents,
Hmm.
and it like I don't know. I mean, where does that even apply for like Chicago teams? I mean, like kind of baseball, like I mean like the Cubs and stuff, but like
Well,
when's the
the
last
idea,
pull from like
the
somewhere
biggest
else?
the biggest idea is that we're one of the largest cities in the country, but it also means that our teams are valued the highest. So in a little bit, we're going to get to the baseball conversation because that's what I want to end for the rest of our time. But the teams like the Bulls, the Cubs, the Bears, like they're top five valued franchise, meaning that they have the money to spend on facilities and coaches and players and not worry about it. So it's one of those where you pair that with the fact that you potentially do have the better facilities, you have the flexibility money wise to spend, you have the long historic tenure of the team in general.
Yeah.
And then you also have the large, massive city, massive fan base, that you can compete with other teams and everything. But somehow that's still like, somehow there's teams that are doing more with less than we are. Like, and that's how it kind of is felt with like the Bulls and kind of how it felt with the Bears and, a lot of teams in Chicago, unfortunately.
Yeah, I feel like there hasn't been that like that default trump card in like a while where they're just like, oh yeah, well like
Mm-hmm.
they're making the same offer, but they're obviously going to want to go to like a Chicago team.
Yeah.
And I've been told that the entire time, and that's like a big part of it. But like, I don't know if that's
Whereas
part of it.
Whereas you finally see like TJ Edwards, people were predicting TJ Edwards was going to get way more money than he did. It kind of feels like he took a little bit of a pay cut because he wanted to play for the Bears. Like
Yeah,
it's how it feels. Like you just look at the contract and you look at him and his stats and everything. You're like, that dude should have probably gotten paid more. So like the obvious thing is like it's probably because he took a little bit of a pay cut because he's from Illinois and he wants to play for the Bears. Like, but the thing is like if that's the case, there has not been historically in the last 10 years of my own memory that I could think of that a player like took any level of pay cut because they want to come play for the Bears. So you
yeah.
know,
I
Like Tremaine
wouldn't.
Edmonds being like a star player, like I think there was talk that like Tremaine Edwards had larger contract offers. Wasn't I think I heard that when he signed.
He signed a massive bag, so that is kind of impressive if that's still the case.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, he signed for 18 and a half a year and 18 a year, but Roquan Smith got 20. So you're like, there is reason to believe that he would probably be receiving larger offers, especially because he's only 25 years old.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's
it's
fine because it seems like the Ravens are going to have lots of cap space to work with.
well, yeah. So, but it's regardless, it's one of those where like, I'm actually glad that we it seems like we have a plan and we're actually doing it. Like, we traded up 5 years ago, one pick to get Trubisky and gave away other picks. And instead, what we did was we decided to trade back, get a crap ton of picks. Oh, and get a number one wide receiver in the mix too. That's 25 years old and on a great contract. Like these decisions just don't feel like decisions that we have had in our organization for like 10, 15 years.
Yeah, certainly not in the time that I've been paying attention. That's for sure. The whole part of the bidding war, um, we always like come across as super desperate, and I feel like everyone would be aware of
Yep.
that to like super overpay. And if you
Yeah.
watched
Whereas
Succession last night, there was also another bidding war. Same sort of idea, just trying to go for the
I
highest number.
as I have not watched that show. I probably should at some point, but
Hmm.
uh yeah, it's one of those where we are always seeming as like the desperate team and we're always not really in conversations. Like we're like even if we're mentioned, it's like, we didn't offer anything significant. Whereas like now we're hearing that players are taking a little bit less money to come play here. And it's like we did that while also backing out of other deals and conversations that we didn't feel were valued at the level they should be at. Like I said with Mike McGlinchey, Orlando Brown. They didn't come out and say they were in the Orlando Brown conversation, but they had to have been, and that had to have been
Yeah,
one of the reasons why they didn't want to sign him, is because he wanted more left tackle, starting left tackle money, top five.
yeah. Justin Fields effect, maybe. I feel
Well,
like at
that
least
part of
they have
it,
a
I mean,
chance.
that's definitely part of it, but that also stems from the fact that like you show faith in them and you trade the first overall pick and all that conversation about us potentially, getting a quarterback in the draft and all that. Maybe they should trade, blah blah blah. It's all stupid. But either
Yeah.
way, it just feels like they have a plan. Like, and everybody, that's the other thing too that's nice about it is like Ian Cunningham had offers to become a GM. Granted, one of the offers is for the Cardinals, and whether or not you want to go there and run that team right now is questionable too. I get it, but he had job offers to be a starting GM, and he decided to stay with the Bears for another year because he quote wanted to see it through and continue the plan. And it's like it's finally
Hmm.
nice to hear that like coach, GM, assistant GM, all of them are on the same page and have this plan that actually like so far has been, best player available in the draft, best, free agents available for the right price, not spending too much, trading back to accumulate more picks so that you have flexibility there, having cap flexibility. Like it's just all of these things are things that may have occurred at one point or another at one of those things, but now all of them are occurring at the same time and it's nice.
Yeah. No, it's nice to see balance across it too, because I feel like there hasn't been like a whole lot of favoritism. I felt like
Mhm.
when Pace had his reign, there was like a massive slant towards defense, which
Yep.
like maybe that's behind the scenes stuff and there's like insider knowledge because they realize like they're not going to win games on the back of the offense. That's part of it. But there was like definitely a slant towards like selling out for players on defense and going for that. And then I feel like offense is kind of like the breadcrumbs that are left over and then like they can give it their
Yep.
best shot and we're not going to go super hard at it, but it's very
Whereas
exciting to see that.
whereas you look at what they've done recently, it's like, people will say like, well, their two biggest signings were the defense. Well, it's like, okay, but they also got a starting right guard. So now you have the flexibility to have Tevin Jenkins and Nate Davis as your guards, and then move Cody Whitehair back to center where he was playing exceptionally well.
Which like
Uh,
let's I mean DJ Moore should be counted in the conversation. Like he's
Well, that's what I'm
basically
saying.
a
DJ
signing.
Moore's my next piece. Like DJ
Yeah.
Moore, you add number one wide receiver. You added Chase Claypool from before, who's not a number one wide receiver, but now that you have a number one, Chase Claypool moving down to 2 or 3 makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And he'll have a full offseason to learn the playbook and play and develop chemistry with Justin Fields, because that also played into why he wasn't playing super well, at the time. I mean, his first game, they said he knew like 4 plays. So like, it's hard to do anything on the field when you know like 4 plays and you don't have a chemistry with the
run
quarterback.
fast and jump, run fast and jump and lean into the guy, get that pass
Exactly.
interference.
And you don't have wide receivers that are taking pressure off of you because all the other wide receivers are either the good ones are injured or they all are terrible.
Or Dante
So
Patos, yeah.
yeah, exactly. That he falls in that terrible category.
Okay, I don't disrespect him too much. He was not in the terrible category.
No, he's a fine fourth or fifth wide receiver on the team. He just cannot be your top three. He just cannot be in like your, you know, his snap count should be nowhere near like what your top 2 or 3 guys are.
Lest we
That's
not
the
forget
alpha.
where we came from with Nasemba Webster. So like,
Mhm.
let's not get too high and mighty. We have to remember where that came from. That was not
Listen,
their number one wide receiver at one point.
Simba Webster had to have been like losing his mind. He must have been like, dude, I signed a contract to be like a punt returner, and all of a sudden I'm now the starting wide receiver. He was like, I don't know what's happening, but this isn't what I signed up for, literally.
And
Um,
he just adds it to his resume. What is that guy
yep.
doing right now?
I think
Be
he's still
very
on.
interesting.
He might still not be on the team, honestly. He might still be on the Bears.
He is still a return specialist for the Bears. Okay.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
he's a
Wow.
practice squad guy, but he's hey, he came in and he played. Um, so
Terrifying.
regardless, though, like they got Nate Davis. Now their offensive line, really, they're just missing a right tackle, which they can get in the draft pretty reasonably because there's a decent amount of them. Uh, and then realistically, they got a number 1 wide receiver. So now your starting 3 are, I think I heard the stat that like if you put the stats, of the good years of all 3 of their starting wide receivers, that they would be basically top 5 amongst all wide receiving cores.
Whew. Yeah.
Like if you took the best year or 2 of Mooney, best year or 2 of Claypool, and best year or 2 of DJ Moore, and put that against any wide receiving core, that they would be basically top 5. And not saying they would reach that level, obviously, because that's their best years. But I mean,
Yeah.
if they're going to be top 5 reaching their best years, they'll at least be top 10, as long as they play well.
Yeah.
So, like, that's
I would
nuts.
find it really hard. Well, that's too high of a bar, but I'd be disappointed, especially with the extra game, at
Yeah.
this point, if they didn't eclipse or like eventually surpass like Jeffrey and Marshall.
Yeah. And then throw in the fact that I don't have to watch what Trevon Wesco or Arnold try to catch a ball anymore. And I can now watch Cole Kmet. And then if Cole Kmet has any issues or is tired, we can get Robert Tunyon in, who, guess what, was a pretty good starter in the NFL. It's nice that
Yeah.
we actually have a backup tight end that can actually catch passes and, not drop just freaking wide open little flicks that they can't catch.
That usually falls in the
Ugh.
back, like in the back of the wayside. Like they don't actually address that like backup or like their second
Yep.
tight end position. I feel like they haven't done that for a while. So I was surprised at that. That
Yeah.
was a weird signing for them.
That's what I mean. I was like, it was nice because it's like you have the money. Like, why not? Like, why not go get a tight end who could also play, when needed? Like, that's a huge thing. And then running back room, yeah, I think ultimately it did get a little worse. But you're probably going to get similar production, I would assume.
Yeah.
You
What
hope it stays healthy, but you're going to get at least somewhat similar
what are
production.
these psychopaths that I keep seeing crop up where they're like draft Bijan Robinson or whatever at number 9? Like, come on.
I think if you trade back again,
How
that
far?
then
We have to be
I'd
really
have to see
fucking
the.
far for me.
No, I think late teens. Here's my thinking. Here's the world where I think you could be okay drafting Bijan Robinson. You get to like if you trade back, you're in like 17th pick, and you get there, and Peter Skoronsky, Broderick Jones, and Paris Johnson Jr. have all gone. Those are the tackles. I think there's a world where you can go. Well, we got another early second round pick in and there's a lot of pass rushers and offensive linemen we like in the second round. I could talk myself into getting Bijan Robinson in the late teens if you already traded back again and got more picks, and the guys that you wanted are gone. Like that'd be my other stipulation is that like it would have to be a value thing where like the other tackles that you could get there and like Lucas Van Ness or something is gone. Like you're basically sitting at 17 and you're like your core guys that you wanted are gone, and then you look at the board and you go, best player available. He's literally the best player available. So like, and we do have a need at running back.
I think it'd be a crime against humanity to do that when the
Yeah,
like
but
the offensive line, especially the defensive line.
the thing is if you don't like, if those guys that you want aren't there, and you think, and there's talent in the second round that you're happy with
Yeah.
getting, there's a world where you can do that. Fans won't like it when it first happens, but if you address tackle and defensive line in your second, because at this point we're saying that they're going to get a third second round pick. So now they have 3 second round picks. If you address offensive line and defensive line in those 3 picks, all 3 of them are offense/defensive line picks. Then it's one of those where I think when the season starts and you start seeing Bijan Robinson run in that offense, you're going to be like, I'm kind of happy we got that guy now. But again, it's one of those where my stipulations are, like I heard the quote I heard, because they brought this up on the Bears podcast that I watch, and the one guy said that I would have to see what their day 2 board looks like, because that's where I would be okay with it. If their day 2 board is like, hey, we have like 2 or 3 tackles still in the second round that we think that will be available when we pick, that we're happy with, and then there's also a defense tackle and a defensive end that we like in the second round that'll be available when we pick, then I would approve. But I think you have to look at where the board is essentially, and then how far you traded back.
Okay.
Like I don't want you to reach and get a guy in the first round that you could have gotten in the early second, when you have that early second round pick, if Bijan Robinson's there and it's a glowing need and there's not a better player there available, like that fits your need. Like I don't want you to reach. I would rather have Bijan Robinson than you reaching for a guy that could be a day 2 guy.
Yeah. I mean, sure.
That's kind of how I meant. Because then the other thing too is like I don't like, it's one of those where like, maybe if there's a corner available, would you be fine with them drafting a corner instead of Bijan Robinson? And I'm like, I think the value, honestly, I'd probably want Bijan Robinson instead, because he's going to take 45% of the snaps on offense.
Yeah, I mean that's more
Like
convincing than like against a quarterback for sure,
here's
especially
the
with what
thing:
they have.
if you say that you're going to draft Bijan Robinson from 9 to 14, you're out of your mind. But if you're like, oh, we traded back to 18 and Bijan Robinson's best player available, I can't argue with the pick as long as your day 2 projections look okay. Like as long as your day 2 projections are like, hey, we feel pretty good that there are a couple guys we like are going to be available at the picks we have, then go for it.
Yeah. It's just it scares me when people are it kind of reminds me of like the Clyde Edwards-Helaire being described as like a luxury pick for the Chiefs, total home run. Oh my god, he's going to be great. And then
Yeah,
he
but
fell flat.
the thing with him though if I remember correctly, I think he had some injury concerns even in college, and he was also 5'7", and I mean, Bijan Robinson has been like, from the moment he stepped on the field, he's been healthy and he's been the guy for like the entirety of his college career. So it's one of those where like it's a little bit different. I equate
Yeah.
Bijan Robinson more so to like Saquon Barkley coming out, where you're like, this is a dude who's going to be really good, like no matter what.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just
Believe
one
it.
of those where I don't. If you said that the Bears were drafting them at 9, I'd be like, oh my god, what's our second round picks look like? Because they better be home runs.
Yeah.
Like, because you can't draft a running back in the first round unless your second round picks, unless you feel really good about your day 2 board. Put it that way.
Right. Okay. Believable enough. And by the way,
Yeah, like if
Nacima
they trade
Webster
back,
played 2 games at wide receiver his entire career, and they were for the Bears.
nice.
Wanted to close out that part.
Um, yeah. So that's all I'll say about that. Let's transition to our last topic then, because we're kind of hitting time wise where we were kind of wanting is a sweet spot. So obviously, opening day is coming Thursday. I'm actually pretty excited because the Yankees are one of my favorite teams. Grew up loving them. My dad was a Yankees fan. Everybody always asks me, they're always like, how are you a Yankees fan? You live in Chicago. And I'm like, my
Yep.
dad grew up watching the Yankees. How did he become a Yankees fan? He grew up watching the Yankees. I believe it. If I remember correctly, he said he was his uncle's house that he was always at, or they lived at one point. His uncle, or maybe it was his grandfather, used to always have Yankees games on because his grandfather was a huge Yankees fan. So it just kind of continued down that trend where, my dad used to watch Yankees growing up, almost every week, and so then he became a huge fan. And then I watched the Yankees growing up every week because my dad was a huge fan. I was telling you off screen, actually, or off podcast, that the reason why I became a closing pitcher when I played baseball, and the reason why I developed a cutter was because of Mariano Rivera, because he was my favorite player on the Yankees for a while. So yeah, I grew up being a Yankees fan, so I'm excited for the Yankees season because last year was disappointing, but this year I think we have a little bit of a better team, and I also love seeing prospects like Anthony Volpe. I've been wanting Anthony Volpe up so badly. Last year I was like getting so hyped watching him, and I was just so excited. Jason Dominguez is another dude that I really hope comes up in the farm system in the near future because those both of the Volpe. So he got announced that he's going to be like the starting. Or he got told he made the roster. Unbelievably excited for him. He's like a 20-year-old shortstop that's super athletic, super talented. Needs to round out his hitting, but every shortstop does. So I'm just really excited about that. And then Jason Dominguez is a guy that's just been killing it, and he's like 19 years old. So excited about him as well. So the Yankee season, I'm overly excited about because I think that we have a chance at actually competing. We're definitely going to compete for a championship. I just think that we actually have a better shot this year at winning it than last year. So I'm excited for them. And then my other favorite team that I'll briefly talk about is the Cubs.
Wait. Why are you?
And
What's different this year as a person who's completely on the outside? Just prospects coming up, or
I just the team itself had some issues last year as far as like pitching goes. They were kind of infrequent, and I feel like they're get like injuries were playing a role. Uh, and then you had like just disappointing games at times. Like center field, we had Hicks, who was good initially when he came to the Yankees, but he's just been so bad lately. And it's like almost a liability to have him out there, but he's paid so much, so it's kind of difficult to not have him out there. And then yeah, like shortstop, had the kid, what the heck is his name? It's like Isaiah something Canifer or whatever. He was like very inconsistent, would make a lot of errors that would cause that like at crucial times. And so I just feel like the team overall is just more promising. Like I feel like they could play a more cohesive, consistent basis than last year. And
okay,
consistency is the key. I think that's where I would hang my hat is that I think will be better consistently this year.
okay,
There won't be
gotcha.
so many of those games where I'm just like, why, like where we just drop the ball completely and all of a sudden we're losing 9-3 and it's like we were winning 3-2 and all of a sudden we collapsed. It's like I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
There's a lot of
okay,
games like that.
got it.
And then the Cubs, I'm excited about the Cubs strictly because we went out and signed Dansby, went out and signed James Talion. I can't remember exactly how it's pronounced. He came from the Yankees, so I should have known when he was on the Yankees. But he was one of those guys that I never just learned how to pronounce his name. I used to just literally say whatever came to mind. It's like whether it was Talon or Tylion or whatever, I would just call him that regardless. He was very good last year, very consistent. He's not like a ace pitcher, but he's one of the guys that like he's your second, third, or fourth in your rotation. You're pretty happy, and that's kind of what he's coming here to be, which I'm excited about.
Yeah,
He's only 31 years old, so he's got quite a few years left of being consistent. So I'm hoping that he plays really well. Dansby Swanson, hopefully his bat continues to do as well as he did last year. He's trending upwards with that so far in his career. But if it's anywhere near what it was last year or at the same level, he's going to be awesome. Nico Horner, we just signed to a 3-year extension, which is fantastic. Because Nico Horner is one of the best when he's healthy. That's obviously the big stipulation with Nico Horner. When Nico Horner is healthy, that dude's like bats like 300 and is a Gold Glove infielder. So
what are
his
his
problem
recent
is,
injuries been?
what was his injury last year? He missed like a significant amount of games, and it was because it was I forget what
Oh,
it
so
was. He's
bad,
just
bad. Okay,
it's one of those where he misses like 20, 30 games every season for like stuff, and you're just like I want him to. He just needs to stay out there. Just stay out there and be healthy. And he's one of the best shortstops now, second baseman in the game. And it's one of those where he was one of the best shortstops in the game who get paid significantly better than second baseman usually. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm happy to move over to second base." He's like, "Whatever they need me to do," which is like that's fantastic. So awesome. Cody Bellinger is a great signing because it's like a 1 year. Let's see if he can rekindle what he used to have, and if he can't, then we're out of the contract because it's a 1 year. But if he can, maybe we consider re-signing him long term.
Yeah.
So that's like nice. So it's just like there's a lot of exciting things around them where like the Cubs needed to go out and spend money, and they finally did. And so now I'm hopefully going to see, like, I'm not expecting them to be great. Like, I'm thinking, maybe 10 games above 500.
Okay.
Five games above 500. Honestly, I'll be happy.
Really? Okay. I thought there was
Yeah.
higher expectations.
No,
To
no,
be
no, they're
honest.
not that good yet. Like they got better, but like be above 500, be consistent, be healthy, and I'll be happy.
Okay. All right. So good. You're probably going to be quite pleased this year. Then that's good. Good.
Let's hope. Like I said, healthy, consistent, above 500. That's all I'm asking.
I
That's
thought
what
we
I
were
want.
looking at championships here.
No, no. Eventually, maybe yes. We're no.
Okay. Fine. Fine. So
Yeah. Go out and get me Shohei Ohtani, and maybe I'll start talking about
that's not happening.
championship. I know we have the money to do it, so we need to do it. Speaking of having the money to do it, uh, I sent you. I was told you to look up this article previously, where it has the teams and what they're worth and how much they make per year. Hilarious that the Yankees are just. I mean, of course, worth like. Of course, they were going to be worth the most because they're like the historic franchise. New
Yeah.
York, everything about them is just they're the Yankees. But it was just striking that they were seven. They were worth like 3 million more than the next team, like or 3 billion.
Yeah. I mean, they have a dominance that's like cultural. It's also obviously like in baseball. I mean, like I can even think of like, especially movies even, which is kind of funny. But like if you ever look at like a really popular movie, like, oh yeah, it's like a 90s like prime time thing. It's like, oh yeah, no, he's a Yankees fan. They've got a Yankees. I mean, it goes far, far back.
Well, part
So,
of the Yankees things too with them is they were the first team, and this that they so it was George Steinbrenner, and it was a genius move by him business wise. He's the first. They were the first team that like established a TV deal for them,
oh,
and
okay.
that's
For all teams?
no for the Yankees.
Okay, okay.
Like they established a TV deal where like you could watch the Yankees consistently on TV, and they were the first team to do it, and it was like of course they ended up becoming like they were more readily available to be watched than most other teams, country worldwide. So
Oh, wow. Okay, so that paid
yeah,
off super long term.
yes, that is part of the reason why they continued to you know grow as they did.
Yeah.
So
When was that back in? Like 90s or in
the
70s?
80s, I think it was the
80s.
80s.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Yeah, I can't
believable.
remember. You'd have to Google like George Steinbrenner TV deal, but it's like it was literally like the first massive deal that allowed them to be basically able to be viewed country and worldwide versus like, just your local team.
Huh. Yeah, now they got all the stupid. That's another thing entirely, is all the stupid blackout rules and everything. Like we can't
hmm
even watch like certain like Sox and Cubs games with like the MLB pass or whatever they
My
give
dad
out
has
for
been
free.
talking about how he's really worried about like whether he'll be able to watch like Cubs games this year. He's like he has to figure out like how he's going to do it.
Yeah,
So,
there are
living in
ways.
Tennessee, by the way, just for context for everybody. Um, yeah, he's like worried about like trying to figure out how he's going to be able to watch the Cubs and Yankees this year, just because of the stupid blackout thing.
I was just gonna say, yeah, the Marquee Network. You could always pay for that. I think that's like they made their big step in having it be like independent, I think, as well. Like not necessarily tied to like cable packages, but like kind of like a streaming
Yeah,
service.
I thought there was something weird with the marquee though, like location wise, but I can't remember if that was actually a thing.
Yeah. Let me see this. Marquee network for out of games are now available
Boom,
out of market for
Yankees.
MLB TV customers. Oh, that's pregame and post show.
Yeah, I would doubt it is tied to location too, but I swear I heard something weird. Maybe that was thinking like the mileage thing happened to do with, like you said, the blackouts of certain games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was, but I remember like he's yeah trying to figure out how they're gonna watch like Yankees and Cubs. Cubs obviously marquee. It is if that is the case, that is again one of the smart decisions, and hence why the Cubs are worth as much. By the way, mentioning that article to go back to that article, the Cubs ended up being the fourth highest valued franchise. So just continuing that conversation about Chicago sports teams being worth more and they need to spend money.
Yeah, I mean that one I was surprised at that too. Like I didn't know like or no, I might be looking at the wrong one here, but the Braves also being high up there too. I was also like, really?
I mean, the Braves have been gaining steam for a while now. So to me, it's the same like concept of like the Astros. Like the Astros have been gaining steam for quite a while. Um, so it doesn't surprise me, I guess, that those two teams are up there. I think the Rangers being up there surprised me because the Rangers are like top 12, and I was like, I don't like the Rangers are one of those teams that I go like, oh, they have a lot of money. Like, but yeah, the Cubs are worth like literally twice as much as the White Sox, which is crazy.
And still, well, no, I won't say that exactly. Just saying, like, I guess they still like sell out all the time, regardless. But like, regardless of performance or whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, the Cubs do
The
too.
Yeah, and then the Sox. I think the Cubs make a staggering $425 million in profit per year, which is nuts.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Yeah,
Cubs
Danny
could
said that
save.
the Cubs are still not more successful than the Sox, which is also true.
Well, that's been the issue. That's why when Theo came to the Cubs, it was finally like, oh, we're actually going to build this the right way by building the farm system, and which is what they were attempting to do the last when they tore down the whole thing and traded Rizzo and Bryant and Baez and everything. They basically did that. They replenished their entire farm system, and then that's what they're doing now. Again, is they're signing a couple players here and there and bringing up farm system players. So
Yeah,
that's kind of the idea. But
yeah, that's what the Sox are also kind of
yeah, the White
betting on
Sox.
too.
The White Sox's problem is Reinsdorf. That's their problem. That's the same problem that the Bulls have too. Is Reinsdorf handing out. When he paid Zach Levine, it was the first $100 million plus contract he'd given out in either sport.
Yeah, that's really something, isn't it?
Yeah,
Especially with baseball on the line. Wow.
yeah. Considering the Cubs have done that more than a handful of times in the last 10 years, like it's crazy.
Yeah. It's a shame that they didn't actually. I know they're like kind of penning for built up sustainable success and it just didn't go out that way, but oh well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what did they I mean, really what happened after the World Series? They fizzled out. They got knocked out
Who,
earlier than they should have like twice, I think. I want
who
to
the
say
Cubs?
almost three times. Yeah.
Yeah, the Cubs. It was kind of one of those where they were built to win consistently, and they did. They just didn't like it. Just winning a World Series more than once is difficult in any like that. Winning a World Series more than once, is one of those in like a short time. Keeping the same team is one of those that where like it might honestly be harder than other sports because there's just so much like that factors into it baseball wise. And
Yeah.
so, like, they were built to win consistently, and they did. It's just they didn't like once you had that win in the World Series, the expectation was that you would be there, consistently, or at least close to there. And they did exit relatively earlier than people had hoped. But part of their problem too was is that like they caught fire that year. Baseball is one of those where you have a magical year, and I always say magical because that's what it is. It's like baseball teams just go on like a magical run, and then they dominate and they win, and that's kind of what the Cubs did that year. Um, but it's just one of those where the problem was is that their players were getting older and they would have had to start paying guys, and they weren't winning consistently as well as they would have liked. So what they did was they traded house, and when they traded house, they replenished their farm system in the process, and now their farm system is probably one of the better ones in baseball. And in the next couple of years, you'll start seeing that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It'll be
So,
interesting. Hopefully, it doesn't go the same way. At least the Sox will have to be exciting at some point to even follow the same trajectory. So,
well,
got him for this year.
The Sox basically needed to get an umpire that, or an umpire, a
Buy those too. Yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah, apparently the way it's going. As you see, oh God, I have a slight tangent that I want to go on just because did you see that the JT Real Muto getting thrown out, the catcher?
Mm-mm.
Dude, you got to pull up this clip and watch it live right now. It's JT Real Muto, I think is his name. I could never, again, terrible at pronouncing names. So here we are. He got thrown out of a game recently by an umpire, and they watch what happens, and it's hilarious. You're just like, come on. You're like,
Just
this
this
is
spring
stupid.
training game, huh?
Yes, watch why. It's so stupid. You're like, come on. Like, why is this umpire just like deciding that he's gotta, oh, God, umpires in general, they're sometimes like I know that there's like a large, oh wait, watch. Hold on. That was a time thing. Oh, watch right here. So he threw the pitch. So basically, what happened was is he threw the ball to the pitcher. The guy didn't like, so he didn't like it. Watch this though, right here. So they show the replay. So the umpire threw the ball back to the pitcher, and then the catcher put his arm up, didn't get the ball immediately. So he thought, just as the umpire had previously just done, the umpire threw the pitch to the pitcher, or threw the ball to the pitcher. When he didn't get the ball immediately in his mitt by holding it up there for a couple seconds, he thought, oh, the umpire's just throwing it to the pitcher.
Yeah.
And then didn't get the ball. And then the umpire angrily threw the ball into the turf and then threw him out of the game. And it was like, dude, come on.
That, yeah, I don't really know what to say to that one. Huh.
Like the level of just like,
How
just
often does the ump throw
unbelievable.
back to the pitcher? I feel like I don't really see that either.
It happens, but it's just one of the, see what I mean? Like he put his hand up there, didn't get the ball, so he just assumed that, like he did literally 30 seconds ago, he was going to throw the ball to the pitcher, and then the umpire didn't like that.
Uh,
Literally, look at how like dumbfounded he is. He's like, I got thrown out for that. Like,
replace them with robots.
it's listen, I like umpiring is one of those things in baseball where as long as the umpire is consistent, I don't care what their strike zone is like. People always get hung up on it, and the thing that you have to understand when as a baseball fan is if their strike zone is different than the normal strike zone or whatever you've seen from a previous umpire, that's fine. You just have to be consistent. So that way the pitcher knows.
Yeah.
When they start calling strikes that were balls previously, that's when you see hitters get frustrated because they're like, listen, you've not been calling this a strike the entire game, so I'm not swinging at it. And then all of a sudden you're going to start calling it. That's when you see pitchers get mad when they throw a strike that has been a strike the whole game and then it gets called a ball. And then, like I said, the opposite, you'll see when hitters get mad. And that's what annoys me about umpires. I'm totally fine with them in their establishing their own strike zone and blah blah blah, but just be consistent. You can't call. It's like how we talk about refereeing in NFL games with pass interference or calling fouls in basketball at the end of the game. If you haven't called it the whole game, don't call it differently than that position. And it's the
Right.
same thing with baseball. The problem is that sometimes the decisions that they make are just like so blatantly stupid. And then sometimes you get umpires like this that are like feels like they're on like a power trip. And it's like, dude, just swallow your freaking pride. Like call like there's no what was going on in your life that in a spring training game you were that pissed that he didn't catch the ball that you get through to him.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
and it doesn't hurt. It doesn't help baseball. I mean, if anybody has watched this podcast previously, they know how much it annoys me that baseball doesn't have the same level of awareness in trying to be popular like the other sports do. And I've talked endlessly about it. But this is just another prime example. It's just bad PR. It's just another thing that like, oh, look at baseball doing another stupid thing because
Luckily,
of
this
a
was in spring training,
pointless
but
rule.
still,
I know,
yeah.
but it's just one of those where like stuff like that does happen in games in the regular league because
Oh yeah.
you know, and it's just like bad PR. And then
Who's that one dumb dude who finally retired that everyone hated? Joe West or whatever.
Angel, oh well, that guy I was talking about Angel
Ah,
Hernandez or whatever.
haha. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, just stupid, just unbelievably stupid. Baseball just doesn't. They can't get out of their own way most of the time, and that's what annoys me the most because I love baseball to a pat. Like I love baseball to a point where like I'm one of those people when the game is 1-0 and that's when it ends. I'm excited. I'm like that was great. It was a fantastic pitcher's duel. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
could see that.
and then like just seeing stuff like that and just it just like pisses me off to no end. I just get so annoyed with baseball because I'm just like, just be popular. Like I don't understand why you're not. Like the World Baseball Classic happened and 97% of households, I think it was 97% of households or something like that, watched the World Baseball Classic in Japan, like Japanese households or something. It was some stupid, absurd number like that. And it was like, wow, they actually like, so you're telling me that people across the world like watching baseball? Maybe you should advertise to those people the same way that the NBA does. It just
Yeah.
kills me. It just pisses me off. No end.
Yeah. No, it's
Which, by the way, World Baseball Classic. Did you see the ending of that? Oh my god!
I did actually after you recommended I should jump that one on. Yeah.
Did you remove me from the podcast?
No, it looks like you might have dropped out of the
What?
control room.
Oh, it did say I'm having a problem.
Ah, see there it is.
Well,
As much as I like the white square. There we go.
and
Okay,
I'm back.
that's part of it. Yeah.
Oh, technical difficulties. That's great. Either way, the World Baseball Classic, yeah, it was awesome. Ending with a freaking pitcher, like a duel of Otani versus Mike Trout, two best players in baseball going head to head in a high pressure situation. Incredible. Like that's just beautiful. And
I wish
also,
I
by the
knew
way,
it was
why wasn't
on. That wasn't really
huh?
advertised at all in the first place.
Dylan, Jesus freaking Christ. Another freaking thing. I don't know, like, I was just about to say, I'm like, just about to say, and it's funny that you didn't know that it was happening when it was going on. Because it's almost like the baseball sucks at advertising.
I
Jesus
had no
Christ.
idea about that one for sure.
Makes me so angry. Just makes me so angry.
It's okay. They'll get a bunch of Zoomers in there eventually, and they'll all of a sudden they'll start. You know,
Even
they'll
my
figure it
dad,
out.
who loves baseball as much as me, was like, "Oh, I didn't know the World Baseball Classic Championship was on." Like, yeah, I know. There's a reason for that because they suck at advertising.
Wow, that's sad. Because he's definitely in those circles that would like see that more too.
Yeah, and I would enjoy it.
That's
And
very
then I told him about it, and he was like, "That's crazy." He's like, "That would have been cool to watch." And I'm like,
dumb.
"Would have been."
Wish I was around to see it. Yeah.
By the way, also just another little side tangent. It is hilarious how bad the Angels are, considering that they have the two best players in baseball on their team.
I don't know how that happens. I'm still trying to figure that one out because I might be going to see a game with them in it, and I
You
just want
just
to
have
see in person.
you just basically have a bad rest of your team, and
But
then
like, how still? I guess like baseball is one of those sports where it matters more, but still, how?
I don't know. I don't know how you're two like literally the two best players in baseball and you just can't figure it out. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's a
So
it's amazing, but yeah,
so to end this podcast, that is my opening answer or plea to our selling point to Otani. The Cubs, we can pay you, as I've laid out in this podcast. We also want star players and we're pretty popular and we could be good with you. And we're better than the Angels. So there's
extremely
that.
convincing. Yeah,
I'm
I'll
really
forward
tired.
it to his
Otherwise,
agent and see what he
my
says
pitch will
about that.
my pitch will be a lot better when he actually is available. But
Oh yeah, when
very
he's available to you.
well. See, the problem is that he's only got 1 year left, and they have to pay him, and they don't want to. It doesn't seem like they're going to. So he's going to be a free agent, and he's going to demand like 10 years, 400 million, 500 million. Let's do it. Let's do it. Come to the Cubs, please.
Yeah, come to the
Please and thank
Cubs.
you.
Up the Toffees, Dylan. Don't forget.
Yeah, well, all right. So, I just we'll end it there. I'm excited to watch baseball on Thursday. That's gonna be fun. I'm actually gonna uh I'll be unfortunately at work during those time, but I baseball is one of those where whenever it comes back, I'm always excited because there's so many games that like randomly you're just like, I wonder what I want to watch. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's a Cubs game on, and then you can watch it. And it's like awesome that that occurs for like 4 or 5 months at a time.
Yeah. No, it's
So
coming back, and then don't forget, of course, Everton's playing Monday, which is what we
yeah,
were
that's a
looking
new
forward
thing
to.
for us as podcasters. When we have Danny on next time to talk about the football again, we'll definitely have to talk about the fact that we're becoming together Everton fans because Danny is an Everton fan, and me and Dylan are finally getting into the love of soccer, and we don't have a team, so might as well adopt the team that Danny likes and let's roll with it.
I did accidentally call it football the other day without thinking about it, so that
Good.
was a good step as well.
I mean, I definitely do it. Like, I definitely, when I'm talking to people, I've said it because like that's my first inclination because I've watched it, and stuff like that. I've enjoyed it. I played FIFA, for years and years and years. Which like that's the funny part about playing the video games is people are always asking me, they're like, "How do you know so many players and stuff like that?" And it's like it's because I play the video games.
I'm
It's like
learning a lot more just because of
yes,
that, even because of like
that's the
rules
point.
and stuff.
That's why when you were wanting to become like way back in the day, I remember I gave you Madden and I told you to just take it home because it was the previous year. And the reason, and now here we are on a podcast talking about sports because like playing the games, you learn the players, you learn the teams, you learn like what the players are good at least. You're like, oh, that guy's fast. Like you learn like the key things about the player. And then when you go and watch them, then you're like, oh, I know who that is because I've played with them or I've seen them. I know he's the fast guy. So then you
Yeah,
watch him and you're like, there he is.
Holland's my
You know,
boy right now. I came back from a down a 3 goal lead and won today, 5-3. So
nice.
yeah, it's been huge, big learning curve.
Oh,
Anyways, I gotta go to
yeah.
bed.
Yeah, we gotta go to bed. But yeah, so we'll just end this podcast right there. Baseball's back, baby. March Madness is gonna be great this weekend. Let's see y'all next time, folks. That's all she wrote.